இந்த வீடியோவில் நம்ம பார்க்க போகிற டாபிக் வந்து காக்னிட்டிவ் பயாசஸ். ஓகேங்களா, இது வந்து ஒன் ஆஃப் தி இம்பார்ட்டண்ட் டாபிக் ஃபார் சைக்காலஜி இன் ஜென்ரல். இல்லைனாலுமே டே டு டே லைஃப்பில் வந்து இந்த காக்னிட்டிவ் பயாசஸ் வந்து எப்படிலாம் நம்ம லைஃப்பில் அஃபெக்ட் பண்ணுது, whenever we are taking any decisions or judgment, how it is affecting our day to day life அப்படிங்கிறத இந்த வீடியோவில் பார்க்க போகிறோம். இதில் வந்து நான் ஜஸ்ட்டு ஏவியேஷன் அண்ட் லீடர்ஷிப்பு அப்படிங்கிற அந்த ஒரு எக்ஸாம்பிள் மூலிமா நம்ம பார்க்கலாம் ஒரு ஏவியேஷன் இண்டஸ்ட்ரியில் எப்படி இது அஃபெக்ட் ஆகுது, அண்ட் இல்லை பீப்புள் ஹூ ஆர் அட் தி லீடர்ஷிப் பொசிஷன் எங்கெங்கெல்லாம் வந்து நம்ம டிசிஷன் எடுக்கிற நிலைமையில் இருக்கோமோ அங்கே வந்து எப்படி நம்ம எப்போவுமே வந்து காக்னிட்டிவ் பயாசஸ்னால் அஃபெக்ட் ஆகிறோம் அப்படிங்கிறது. ஓகேங்களா, ஸோ நம்ம ப்ராப்பராக இதை நான் ஒரு ப்ரெசன்டேஷன் மாதிரி பண்ணி நம்ம பார்க்கலாம். ஓகே, ஸோ இந்த ப்ரெசன்டேஷனில் ஜஸ்ட்டு வந்து ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணுறதுக்கு முன்னாடி ஒரு டிஸ்க்ளைமர் என்ன அப்படின்னு பார்த்தீங்கன்னு வச்சுங்களேன். இந்த ப்ரெசன்டேஷனை வந்து ஜஸ்ட்டு ஒரு ரிலாக்ஸ் மோடில், அதாவது ஒரு ரிசப்ஷன் மோடில் ஜஸ்ட்டு கேளுங்க. ஓகேங்களா, மேபி நீங்கள் வந்து லைஃப்பில் வேறு ஏதாவது இப்போ ஒர்க் பண்ணிகிட்ருப்பீங்க. ஓகேங்களா, அண்டு இந்த ப்ரெசன்டேஷனுக்கு வந்து நம்ம ஏதாவது பதிலை சொல்லணுமோ அப்படிங்கிற எந்த அவசியமே கிடையாது. பிகாஸ் இதில் படிக்க போகிறது நம்ம cognitive biases. Basically it is our own bias. Okay, so அதனால listen this presentation without any bias, just open mindல what is cognitive bias, what are all the different types of cognitive bias அப்படிங்கிறத பார்ப்போம். ஓகேங்களா, ஸோ நம்ம வந்து இந்த 3 இம்பார்ட்டன்ட் டாப்பிக்கை பார்க்க போகிறோம். ஃபஸ்ட்டு காக்னிட்டிவ் பயாஸுக்கும் ரோல் ஆஃப் பிரெயின் அப்படிங்கிறது என்னென்னு பார்ப்போம். ஓகேங்களா, பிரெயின் வந்து எப்படி இந்த மாதிரி பயாசஸ் எல்லாம் வந்து உருவாக்குது அப்படிங்கிறத பார்ப்போம். What are all the different types of biases? Very very important topic because there are n number of cognitive biases. So in this section we shall see in deeply that there are how many types of biases, and lastly how we can manage the bias அப்படிங்கிறத பார்ப்போம். So firstly இந்த question கேட்கலாம் நம்ம कि why do we study about these biases? Why are we even studying about the biases? So as I mentioned early, it is because pilots or general people in leadership, they have to take a rapid high stake decisions in day to day life. ஓகேங்களா, ஸோ இந்த மாதிரி நம்ம டிசிஷன் எடுக்கும்போது ஈவன் ட்ரெயின்டு பைலட்டாக இருக்கட்டும், ட்ரெயின்டு லீடராக இருக்கட்டும், தே ஃபால் இன் டு தி ட்ராப் ஆஃப் தீஸ் கைண்ட் ஆஃப் பயாசஸ். ஓகே, ஸோ அந்த மாதிரி அவங்க ஒரு சைடாக பயஸ்னாலே தெரியல, ஏதாவது ஒரு சைடாக அப்படிங்கிறது அர்த்தம். ஓகேங்களா, ஒரு சைடாக ஃபேவராக வந்து நம்ம டிசிஷன் எடுக்கிறனால நிறைய வந்து ஹை ஸ்டேக்கிங் சுச்சுவேஷனில் வந்து ப்ராப்ளம் ஆக வாய்ப்பு இருக்குது. இதில் வந்து ஒரு நல்ல விஷயம் அப்படின்னு பார்த்தீங்கன்னு வச்சிங்களேன், பயஸை வந்து நம்ம ப்ரிடிக்ட் பண்ணலாம், எப்படிலாம் வந்து பயசஸ் ஆகுது அப்படிங்கிறத. ஸோ நீங்கள் ப்ரிடிக்ட் பண்ணிங்கன்னா டெஃபினெட்லி இட் கேன் பி மேனேஜ்ட். ஓகே, ஸோ நம்ம வந்து ஃபஸ்ட்டு பார்க்க போகிறது வந்து பிரெயின் தான் எல்லாத்துக்குமே பின்னாடி ஒரு கல்ப்ரிட். ஓகேங்களா, ஸோ அதில் வந்து ஒன் ஆஃப் தி பிரெயின் மாடல் இஸ் ட்ரையூன் பிரெயின் மாடல் அப்படின்னு சொல்கிறாங்க. ட்ரைனாலே 3 அப்படின்னு அர்த்தம். ட்ரை மீன்ஸ் 3. ஸோ வாட் தே ஆர் ட்ரைங் டு சே, தேர் ஆர் 3 different layers of brain. Okay, we start from the down. You can see this red color. Okay, this red color part of brain, that is known as reptilian brain. They mentioned here it is known as reptilian brain. Basically it's also known as hindbrain. In the reptilian brain பார்த்தீங்கன்னா they are responsible for all kind of our instincts, basic our instincts, basically survivalக்கு. ஓகேங்களா, fight or flight or your breathing. Okay, so fight or flight already I have mentioned. Reflexes, இதுக்கு எல்லாமே வந்து ரெஸ்பான்ஸ் வந்து பார்த்தீங்கன்னு வச்சுங்களேன் இந்த ரெப்டிலியன் பிரெயின் தான். ஸோ ஆஸ் தி நேம் சஜஸ்ட், இதுதான் வந்து ஓல்டஸ்ட் பிரெயின். ஓகே, ஃப்ரம் தேர் பிரெயின் ஹேஸ் ஆக்சுவலி ஸ்டார்டட் எவல்யூஷனில் வந்து வர ஆரம்பிச்சிது. ஓகே, ஸோ இது வந்து அனிமல்ஸுக்கிட்டேயும் இந்த ரெப்டிலியன் பிரெயின் பார்த்தீங்கன்னா ஒரு அளவுக்கு சிமிலியர் தான். ஓகேங்களா, தட் இஸ் வை இட் இஸ் ஆல் ரெஸ்பான்சிபிள் ஃபார் இன்ஸ்டிங்க்ட். பட் இஃப் யூ see the next layer, that is the mammalian brain, that blue கலராக இருக்குது பாருங்கள். this is the mammalian brain. mammalian brain responsible வந்து பார்த்தீங்கன்னா எமோஷன். நம்ம லிம்பிக் சிஸ்டம் இருக்குல்ல, அதுதான் வந்து ரெஸ்பான்சிபிள் ஃபார் எமோஷன். ஸோ த mammalian brain is complete responsible for our emotions like our pleasure, pain, dream, reward, motivation. Everything arises out of this mammalian brain, that is called midbrain. You can call midbrain or paleomammalian brain. Basically it is a limbic system. If you see the third layer, so this is the first layer, This is the second layer. And if you see the third layer, okay, that is the neocortex, okay, neo-mammalian brain, neocortex, this complete area. This is the area and this is the brain that is differentiating us from the animals, because this part of the brain is responsible for reasoning, judgment, analyzing, planning. Everything is responsible of neocortex or neo-mammalian brain. It is responsible for intelligence. So if you see, in short, in this three model brain, that is triune brain model, we have seen a reptilian part of the brain that is responsible for survival, reflex and instinct. There is a mammalian brain, that is limbic system, for emotions. And lastly, neocortex. Neo also, it means new. Basically, it is newly developed. Okay, so that is responsible for logic, analysis and planning. Okay, so if you see, generally if you see, this reptilian and mammalian brain take control of everything. Their activation is very, very fast than the logical brain, because it is rooted in the survival. Okay, so think about that we are as a caveman. Okay, we are just a caveman sitting in the cave, maybe say for example 30,000 years before. Okay, 30,000 BC. You just imagine yourself, you are a caveman, you are sitting in the cave. That time everything is depend upon your survival. So if you are going to jungle, you have to process huge amount of information every day, every minute of every day, wherever you go, because everything that is presented outside, it can be a dangerous situation for that caveman. He can become lunch or dinner of any predator. Okay, so your brain has to keep on process that huge amount of information, which require lot of energy. So as a energy saving mechanism, our brain has developed some shortcuts. That is, it will concentrate only those information which is necessary for the survival. So it will process the information, if you see, quickly and efficiently, so that only the information that is required it will take care. And இன்ஃபர்மேஷனுக்கு, அதாவது நம்மளுக்கு தேவை இல்லாத இன்ஃபர்மேஷன்ஸ்லாம் இருக்குல்ல, அதெல்லாம் வந்து பார்க்கணும் இல்லை அதை ப்ராசஸ் பண்ணணும்னு அவசியமே கிடையாது. ஸோ இதெல்லாம் வச்சு தான் நம்ம பிரெயினே ஓவராலாக டெவலப் ஆச்சு. ஸோ ஹவு திஸ் மென்டல் ஷார்ட்கட், இப்போ நான் சொன்ன பார்த்தீங்களா, எப்படி கேவ்மேன்லேருந்து இந்த ஹெரிஸ்டிக்ஸ் அப்படின்னு பார்த்தீங்கனாலே இட் இஸ் அ மென்டல் ஷார்ட்கட்ஸ்னு அர்த்தம். ஸோ பிரெயின் வந்து என்ன ஆச்சுன்னா, ஒரு சிம்பிள் ரூலை வந்து ஃபாலோ பண்ண ஆரம்பிச்சிருச்சு. பேசிக்கலி இட் ஹேஸ் டு ப்ராசஸ் தி இன்ஃபர்மேஷன் எஃபிஷியன்ட்லி. ஸோ சே ஃபார் எக்ஸாம்பிள், உங்கள் முன்னாடி இந்த மாதிரி ஒரு பாம்பு இருக்குதுன்னு வச்சுங்க, ஓகேங்களா. ஸோ பாம்போடைய ஷேப்பு, கலரு, டெக்ஸ்டரு, எவ்வளோ லாங்காக இருக்குது அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு தெர் ஆர் டூ மெனி இன்ஃபர்மேஷன் டு ப்ராசஸ். ஆனால் நீங்கள் எல்லா இன்ஃபர்மேஷனையும் ப்ராசஸ் பண்ணிவிட்டு உட்காந்துட்ருந்தீங்கன்னா உங்கள்கிட்ட டைம் கிடையாது நீங்கள் அந்த சுச்சுவேஷன்லேருந்து தப்பிக்கிறதுக்கு. ஓகே, பிகாஸ் த த்ரெட் கேன் பி எய்தர் ரியல் த்ரெட் ஆர் அ பர்சீவ்டு த்ரெட். ஓகே, ஸோ இந்த ஸ்னேக்கை பார்த்து எல்லா இன்ஃபர்மேஷன் நான் ப்ராசஸ் பண்ணுறதுக்குள்ளே ஐ மே பி தி விக்டிம் ஃபார் தட் சுச்சுவேஷன். த ஸ்னேக் மே பைட் யூ, யூ மே டை. அந்த சுச்சுவேஷன்லேருந்து ப்ரிவெண்ட் பண்ணுறதுக்காக நம்ம பிரெயின் வந்து நிறைய ஷார்ட்கட்டை வந்து டெவலப் பண்ண ஆரம்பிச்சிருச்சு. ஓகேங்களா. ஸோ ஏதாவது ஒரு இந்த மாதிரி ஒரு த்ரெட்டை பார்த்தாலே என்ன ஆகிடும், நம்ம உடனே என்ன பண்ணுவோம்னா வி இம்மிடியட்லி பேக் அவே ஸ்லோலி. So your brain follow that simple rule, that is it has to process the information efficiently. Okay, something is dangerous, just avoid it. Okay, no need to process too many information. Anything is threat, that immediately the alert mechanism start activated in your brain. Okay, so having seen how our brain evolved, how our brain has become energy conserving mechanism, our beauty of the brain, if you see, it is we are known as we are imperfect reasoners, because we are not naturally built, okay, to have a logical conclusion. Okay, we are a energy conservation mechanism, because as again I have said, as a caveman we don't know when is our lunch or when is our dinner. Okay, so our body has to preserve the energy, and approximately brain consume 20% of your total energy, that is goes to brain only. So brain as well as your body, they have to conserve large amount of energy, because you never know when you have to again run for a mile to catch your predator or to escape from your predator. Okay, that's why as a human we generally follow the path of least resistance, because we always want to conserve the energy in the body. Okay, and every time, because of the reptilian and mammalian brain, we always follow the instinct first, logic later. We will never go for logic. Okay, like I gave you the snake example, whether it will bite, what is the texture, we don't have that much of information. If anything, something is dangerous, I have to escape from that place, or I have to fight that place. Instinct always come first, because that is how our brain has evolved, that is how we have been taught over a period of time. So the logic will come later. That is where it is very very important for a leader and pilot, because as a brain we are not meant to use logic. Okay, and our brain has over a period of time developed to find out a pattern. Automatically our brain progress or process the pattern recognition mechanism. Okay, same, you don't have time or energy to process all the information that is outside the world. It will generally see the pattern and it is keep on move away. So just because it is seeing the pattern, there are a lot of things it can miss also. So நிறைய விஷயங்களை அது மிஸ் பண்ணவும் வாய்ப்பு இருக்கு. And because of all these, brain take lot of shortcuts, mental shortcuts or heuristics. These shortcuts are known as cognitive biases. Okay, so cognitive biases are nothing but a mental shortcuts. And why we are doing mental shortcuts, I have told you, that is how our brain has evolved over a period of time. So that's why always remember, we are imperfect reasoner. You cannot every time say that I will take 100% of time, I am very logic and I will take a perfect reasoning for that situation. No, that is not how our brain has developed. Because same, I told you, there are too much information and you cannot process all the information. You have to follow the simple rule. So that simple rule is you have to take that shortcut. Those shortcuts are known as biases. So what is bias? It is a systematic mistakes that is happening in two areas. One is in judgment and another one is decision making. So these are the two important areas in which we are making lot of mistakes, and those mental shortcuts are known as cognitive biases. So I hope so far you have understood what is the cognitive biases and why naturally our brain has developed into a cognitive bias mechanism. Okay, so what are all the certain signs that you are suffering from cognitive biases? Say for example, உங்களுக்கு ஏதாவது ஒரு வியூ இருந்தது அப்படின்னு பார்த்தீங்கன்னா, நீங்கள் எப்பவுமே வந்து certain news and stories that is confirm your opinion. You always go for that, look for only the biased stories that is confirmed with your opinion, and you always assume I am always wrong and other people are right, I cannot be wrong. If you assume always I am correct. Okay, and this is very very important and interesting. If you see, we always attribute people's success, அதாவது other people's success to luck. இப்போ ஒருத்தர் அங்கே ஒருத்தர் வின் பண்ணாரு அப்படின்னா நம்ம என்ன சொல்கிறோன்னா, okay, he gets success because he is very very lucky. But when you get success, you will see that, yeah, it is because of my hard work. I did it, that's why I have achieved it. But when other people are doing it, you will say it is purely matter of a chance or it is because of luck. And this is another sign that you are suffering from a cognitive biases. And it is also, see, it is one of the biggest assumption that other people also think alike. Okay, shares the same opinion and same belief. So that's why many of the time we assume that people should think like this, yeah, because I am thinking like this, people have to think like this. But why are not people thinking like this? We start to have that bias that everyone should think alike. Okay, and last but not the least is constantly we blame if things don't go your way. நீங்கள் நினச்ச மாதிரி ஒரு விஷயம் நடக்கலை அப்படின்னா we will always blame others. Say for example, you are a manager, you are a leader, ஒரு விஷயம் நம்ம சொல்கிறோம் அது நடக்கலை அப்படின்னா நீங்கள் அவங்கள அதிகமாக ப்ளேம் பண்ணிகிட்டே இருப்பீங்க, பிகாஸ் நீங்கள் பிளான் பண்ணும்போது அந்த விஷயம் நடக்கலை. ஸோ என்னென்ன காஸ் இருக்குது, மெயின் ரீசன் என்ன இருக்குது, எதனால காக்னேட்டிவ் பயாசஸ் கம்மிங்? ஓகே, வை தி காக்னேட்டிவ் பயாசஸ் கம்மிங்? By evolutionarily, okay, physiologically we have seen our brain, I've shown you that slide, our brain take lot of mental shortcuts. So this is the one of the reason we have seen. Okay, there are few other reasons. Okay, say for example in the social pressure. So in the social pressure you are forced to take some biased decisions and judgment. You are emotionally low, your mood is not good, you are suffering from maybe some trauma or personal problem. Now you are biased to take certain decisions and judgments, and your attention span is very very less. Your short term memory, long term memory, your attention span, as it is our attention span is reducing nowadays, it is comes near to seconds. Okay, because of this you don't have much of a time, so you take a biased decision. And lastly, individual level motivations also play a important role, because the more or higher your motivation, broader your perspective will be. But if you have a low motivation, you try to take that narrow or myopic vision decision only. So these are the major reason for a cognitive bias. Okay, so because of the cognitive biases, what are all the things are happening? See, you are as a leader, you are as a teacher, you are as a manager, you are as a pilot. These are the 4 important areas that is important. இப்போ ஒரு இடத்துலேயே வந்து இப்போ உங்களுக்கு எதுக்கு மேனேஜருக்கு அவ்வளோ பேமெண்ட் கொடுக்குறாங்க, சிஇஓக்கு அவ்வளோ பேமெண்ட் கொடுக்குறாங்க அப்படின்னு பார்த்தீங்கன்னா, he has to do all this work. ஓகே, அவருடைய மெமரி வந்து கண்டிப்பாக நல்லா இருக்கணும். ஓகேங்களா, you have to take a proper decisions, your judgment should be correct, and your behavior is also should be matched with the organization or social expectation. You just cannot deviate from it. But because of the cognitive biases, all these important areas are getting affected. That is why studying about cognitive bias is very very important. So we have seen what is cognitive biases, we have seen how brain as a mechanism, it has been designed to produce naturally, to produce cognitive bias naturally, and what are all the sign, causes and the areas that is affecting the cognitive biases. So now we'll see in the section 2 what are all the different types of cognitive biases. See, you can see this beautiful picture shows there are various type of cognitive biases. You can see different types of cognitive biases. So for the ease of understanding and better assimilation, we can maybe categorize into under the following 4 heads. Say for example, one is the broad umbrella term, that is cognitive biases. So what are all the biases happening in the mental processes, because cognitive means mental processes. What are all the emotional biases? Because of our instability in the emotion, what are all the biases that can happen? What are all the biases in the irregular perceptions? Okay, if you are having a wrong perception, what are all the biases that can happen? That is, you are too away from the reality. Your perception is too away from the reality. And lastly, the operational biases, that is basically whatever work, organizational or that operation related biases. We can quickly see what are all those biases, and it's going to be very interesting. Okay, the first and most important bias, I would say mother of all the biases, is confirmation bias. It is very very important bias. Okay, this confirmation bias says that we always tend to favor, or we always tend to notice those information in the environment that is conforming with our belief system. Okay, I say again, we always favor or notice those information that is aligning with our belief system. So here the root cause is your belief system. According to your belief system, you start noticing things in the environment. Say for example, you are a pilot, you are flying an aircraft and there is a vibration happening in the pilot. நீங்கள் ஏர்க்ராஃப்டெல்லாம் போகும்போது பார்த்துருப்பீங்க, வைப்ரேஷன்லாம் நடக்கிற மாதிரி இருக்கும். அந்த வைப்ரேஷனில் வந்து சில சமயங்களில் எக்ஸ்பீரியன்ஸ் பைலட் என்ன நினைப்பாங்கன்னா, இந்த மாதிரி ஏர்க்ராஃப்ட் நான் நிறைய ஃப்ளை பண்ணியிருக்கேன், ஓகேங்களா, இந்த வைப்ரேஷன் ஆர் பேசிக்கலி இட் இஸ் பிகாஸ் ஆஃப் என்வைரன்மெண்டல் ஃபேக்டர். ஒரு ஏர்க்ராஃப்டில் எந்த ப்ராப்ளமும் கிடையாது. ஓகே, ஸோ வாட் தே வில் திங்க் that because of my belief system nothing is wrong in the aircraft, they will tend to negate the warning also. because in this bias two things are happening. ஒன்றில் என்னென்னா நம்ம என்ன நினைக்கிறோன்னா, எனக்கு பிலீஃப் சிஸ்டம் எப்படி இருக்கோ அதுக்கேற்ற மாதிரி தான் இன்ஃபர்மேஷன், வெளியே இருக்கிற இன்ஃபர்மேஷன் நான் பார்க்குறேன். இன்னொன்று, எந்தெந்த இன்ஃபர்மேஷன் எல்லாமே டோட்டலி அகெயின்ஸ்ட் ஆஃப் மை பிலீஃப் சிஸ்டம் அது எல்லாமே நான் நெகேட் பண்ண ஆரம்பிச்சிருவேன். அதை நான் கண்டுக்கவே மாட்டேன். இங்கே வந்து பைலட் வந்து அந்த மாதிரி வார்னிங்கை வந்து கண்டுக்கவே மாட்டுறாரு. ஓகே, வைப்ரேஷன் இருக்குது அப்படின்ட்டு. பிகாஸ் ஹிஸ் பிலீஃப் சிஸ்டம் இஸ் நத்திங் இஸ் ராங் இன் திஸ் ஏர்க்ராஃப்ட் ஆர் திஸ் ஏர்க்ராஃப்ட் பிஹேவ் இன் திஸ் வே ஒன்லி. தட் இஸ் ஹிஸ் பிலீஃப் சிஸ்டம். Okay, and if you see the general example, if you want to see, you have got some political orientation with some party, say for example party X. You will always look for those information in the newspaper or in the channel that is supporting your belief system about that party, and you start negating each and every information that is coming against this party because you love it, it is your favorite. So that is why the confirmation bias can be used for both the side. Say for example, as a metaphysical or philosophical idea also, confirmation bias can be utilized. How we can utilize? Say for example, certain people are believe that universe is always guiding them. Okay, they believe in angel numbers, universal signs. Say for example, they always see sometime 1111 numbers or 1221 numbers. So they think that whenever I am seeing this number, which means the universe is giving them a signal that everything is perfect or universe is going to bless them. But if you see the other part of this bias is that there are lot of incident, they have seen the watch and they have not seen this angel numbers. There are lot of incident, but they tend to negate and they only account those occurrence that whenever they see this angel number, okay, the universe is giving me the positive results. Okay, and this bias can also utilized for your own advantage. How? When you have a strong belief that everyone around you is good, my life is good, I always notice good people or good people always come into my life, you will start noticing good people automatically. It doesn't mean that good people have automatically popped up in your life. அவங்க வந்து புதுசாக உங்கள் லைஃப்பில் யாரும் வரல. Just because you have the belief system, now you will notice, see the first point, you will start only noticing those information that is supporting your belief system. What is your belief system? People are good. So you start noticing good in people, and what is the second part? You start negating the bad that is contradicting to your belief system. So suddenly you will start see that your life has changed. You are only meeting good people. Wherever you go, you will get a more opportunity. So this can be utilized for the both way. Okay. So this confirmation is one of the most important and powerful confirmation bias, and you can utilize it for your own advantage, like thinking good. Okay. So the next kind of cognitive bias is anchoring bias. Anchoring bias is very, very important and very interesting because as the name suggests, anchored, we always anchored to the first information that strongly or that is coming in your mind and that is affecting in your decision making. Okay, say for example, உங்களுக்கு நான் ஒரு எக்ஸாம்பிள் கொடுக்கணும் அப்படின்னு வந்து பார்த்தீங்கன்னு வச்சுங்களேன். இப்போது பிளேஸ் ஏலேருந்து சென்னை சென்ட்ரல் இருக்குன்னு வச்சுங்களேன். சென்னை சென்ட்ரல்லேருந்து உங்களுக்கு மகாபலிபுரம் போகணும். ஓகே, நீங்கள் வந்து இறங்குறீங்க, பட் யூ டோன்ட் நோ வாட் இஸ் தி காஸ்ட். ஓகே, சே ஃபார் எக்ஸாம்பிள் மகாபலிபுரம் போகிறதுக்கு ஒரு 1000 rupees ஆகும். ஆனால் இந்த பர்சனுக்கு வந்து அது தெரியல, வாட் இஸ் தி காஸ்ட். ஓகே, ஸோ ஹீ ஆஸ்க் தி ஆட்டோ டிரைவர் வாட் இஸ் தி காஸ்ட். நவ் ஆட்டோ டிரைவர் வில் சே, ஆட்டோ டிரைவர் நோ இட் இஸ் 1000 only. He will say, sir, it is 2000 rupees. Okay, but this person don't know the real rate. So for him, this 2000 is the anchored price. So from this 2000, now he will start his negotiation. He will say, no, I cannot give 2000. Okay, I will give only 1500. And this auto wala will do some kind of, he will do some kind of natak, and finally will say, okay, let's go with 1500. Okay, if you see, now any kind of negotiation happened from the anchored figure, that is 2000. From 2000, okay, for this person it is a good deal because he has reduced 1500, but for him it is actually 1000. He is getting 1500. So both of them will feel that it's a win-win situation for me. For a passenger, will see I have negotiated for 500 rupees. For a driver you say that yeah, it is 1000 only but I got 500. So we always tend to take decision with the first, that anchored figure, that is called anchoring bias. So we should be always very very careful about that first information or anchoring. So whenever you take decision, you should be asking this important question: am I taking the decision based upon the anchoring figure, or that is the actual logic, or based upon the data? We have to check it. The third important cognitive bias is the availability bias. Again, the name suggests it is based upon the availability of info. That is how you can easily recall the info. The more easier you are able to recall, you will seem or you will think that better is the probability or possibility. So it is easier to bring something to mind, the more likely it is same. Say for example, in this picture 1 and picture 2, left and right. Okay, what is the most dangerous profession according to you by seeing this? He is a shark diver and he is a cattle rancher. So according to you, by seeing instinctively, we can say this picture on the left is the most dangerous because he is dealing with the shark. But as per the data, people doing this cattle rancher, okay, so that is more dangerous than the than the shark hunter. Why it is happening? That why we are saying this, even though we have not witnessed in first hand, but we always say that this is only because instinctively, because it is because we have seen many movies in which shark attack people. So there are much more incident you can remind yourself of shark that is attacking a human than the cattle is attacking the human. Okay, so that is why we tend to think that this first example is more dangerous than the second example, even though the actual data says the difference. So can you imagine any kind of aviation example, related aviation example recently? Anything, whatever I said right now, anything can you correlate, or any example that is coming in your mind? Say for example, recent Air India accident that had happened. Okay, after Air India incident that had happened, for a 1 month, complete media newspaper was covering this incident. There is Air India incident. So now people started thinking that air travel is no more safe. So air travel is dangerous. Try to avoid it. But even though the data says air travel is the one of the safest mode of transportation in the entire world, if you compare to any mode of transportation, I think it is 0.03 passengers per billion passengers travel, they are getting affected. Only 0.03 per billion, not even a million. Okay, this is the number of people who die due to the air travel. But even though it is being one of the safest, just because that incident happened very very recent, and just because you can recollect the information that is immediately fresh in your mind or available to your mind, now you are biased that air travel is no more safe. So this is known as availability bias. And there is something called plan continuation bias. As the name suggests, we always stick with the initial plan. That is, we always stick with the original plan even though it is unsafe. Say for example, from place A to place B, aircraft is moving. Before starting from this place, we have made some plan that I will go from A to B. But once after you started, that is T, the time has started, there are other factors also would have influenced your plan. But just because you have already decision that the original plan is to go to the B, you will stick to it even though there are some other factors that is influencing or that is saying that it is unsafe to go as per your plan. Like aviation example, நீங்க சொல்லணும்னா just pilots continue to land on a place going to plan B or plan A, even though the weather is completely worsening, he will continue and keep on going with the plan A. And say for example, you are driving from place A to place B, from Chennai to Madurai, and even though you are tired, you will think that no problem here, I am coming to home, I want to stick to my original plan, even though maybe you might have got traffic or maybe you might have got tired, but we want to stick to our original plan. So that is called plan continuation bias. As the name suggests, again, automation biases, we tend to overly rely on automation process, okay, than the actual or manual process. That is, we are blindly trusting the machines. Again, in the aviation, we are tend to concentrate more on autopilot, and in the actual example, if you want to see, we are just blindly following the GPS in the blocked route, even though we know that it will not take you anywhere, okay, because it is too much of biased in the instruments or trusting the instruments. Okay, so we can see the next, we have seen the cognitive biases. Now we can see the what are all the emotional biases. Okay, emotional biases, one of it is overconfidence. Okay, basically people tend to overestimate their skill. Okay, even though their skill is of average, they think that they are having a very high skill. Okay, people tend to overestimate their skill. So as a pilot, sometimes they go into the stunt that they want to penetrate into the thunderstorm or CB. They are thinking that I have encountered similar kind of situation and nothing will happen to me, because of that overconfidence. Or say for example, you are attempting an examination without preparation just because you are overconfident. You have attended similar exam n number of time, like our exam. Okay, so n number of time I have already attempted semester 1, semester 2, semester 3. I am going here, no problem, I can write it. That is called overconfident biases. Invulnerability biases, that is, you can see, as the name suggests, you are believing that it won't happen to me. I am no more vulnerable. Okay, so I am always protected. It will not happen to me. So this is biases. Speaking about this, in aviation, we generally skip to pre-flight checks. That is, pilot is supposed to do a lot of checks. They tend to leave it or hurry up. No need to do it. Nothing will happen to me. I no need to do it because I have been regularly flying. Okay, and people are not wearing helmet while doing the biking, saying that what will happen here, I'm just going for the bike only, and nothing will happen to me, I'm not vulnerable anymore. So that is an example for invulnerability bias. Hurry up syndrome, this is that it is now time is of paramount importance. So the previous two examples we have seen, overconfident and invulnerability bias, we have seen that it is because of the overconfidence in their skill. Here it is hurrying up because of the time factor or urgency factor. So you are rushing under the time pressure. In aviation, people, because the VIP is here, they have to go fast, or maybe initially they planned for some of the timeline and they want to meet that timeline, they are hurrying up. So they may skip the checklist before takeoff. Or when you are going from your home to your office, you may speeding up because you are already late for your office. So that is hurry up syndrome. Ego involvement, it is one of the important emotional bias, because ego is one of the powerful contributor in the emotions. Here the ego is of pride. Okay, pride sometimes overrule the logic. Again, we have seen that reptilian and mammalian brain, they always overtake the logic. We have seen that in the first slide, right? So that is what coming here. Emotional or limbic system always take over the prefrontal cortex. That is important for your decision making. So it will overrule your logic. Here sometimes captain thinks that he may dismiss the view of co-pilot because he is very junior to him. Because ego and he will not take any input from him, thinking that he is very junior. Why should I ask him? So now here ego is involved. That is why in CRM or in aviation, we follow the cockpit gradient that has been followed. Okay, and general, if you want to give a general example, people refuse to ask the direction. Why should I ask this person? I know, because of my ego. So now we are going to the third part, that is perceptual bias. Because of our perception, that is, this is not matching with the reality. You are having, your perception is totally different, and what are all the biases arises out of it. This is a visual illusion. It is more related to the aviation. that is like a various optical illusion, like motion induced illusion. You might have seen in the train, whenever you are sitting and the train besides you, if that is moving, you will start feeling that as if you are also moving. The train illusion whenever your train is stopped. So this is motion induced illusions. And expectation bias is one of the important, because as the name suggests, we always see or hear what we expect to see or hear. Okay, it is somewhere related to the confirmation bias, but confirmation bias, there the key word is belief system. According to your belief system, you will notice or you will see those information. But here it is just because you are expecting something, okay, you will tend to see or hear that only. Okay, so if you think that you are expecting someone's phone call and that time phone has come, so you will see that, yeah, see, that is what that is a classical example of expectation bias. And another perception bias is, I am always better than the average. If there is a classroom or group of people, every individual, we always start to think that I am always better than the average of this class. But if you see fundamentally why we are even thinking this, is, it is because we always tend to notice the flaws in others much more easily than in ourselves, because we are fault finding organism. Why we have to find a fault? Go to the evolution. I have told you, unless until you are not finding the fault in your environment, your chances of survival will be reduced. So our brain naturally wired to identify negative or threats in the environment. So we always tend to see negative or flaws in the other people than in ourselves. So that is why we always think that I am always better than average effect. It's one of the perception bias. So we should be very, very careful about this. Representativeness bias, it is one of the perception. Basically, out of these two picks, if you see who is more likely to listen to the punk or jazz music, by seeing this person and his gesture, we can see intuitively that this person more likely to listen to the punk music than this person, even though we don't have a supporting data towards it. Because the more something matches our preconceived notion, so our preconceived notion of punk music is people should be like this, so the more likely we are to think that these people will fall into this category. Okay, people from South India, they will be like this only. Okay, so people from infantry, they will be like this only. We are generalizing because how they have been representing, because you have made your mind, you have few templates made in your mind, and you start seeing things like this. So that whatever I was mentioning, that's what mentioned here. And lastly, we can see what are the operational bias that is related to any kind of operation. So say for example, be it your organization, corporate or military, anywhere, there are some basic norm should be there, but people sometimes break this law or break this rules, and that seems or accepted as a normal. Okay, so breaking rules feels normal to certain people, and it is accepted. It is a normalization only. So we tend to normalize the deviance. Every people is doing this. Every people is breaking the rules in the traffic. Whenever, even in the red, they are trying to move because that is where for certain specific area. Okay, specific area in the south or north. Okay, they don't wear helmet because everyone see that it is a normalization. This deviance from the rule is normalization in that area. So that is what normalization of deviance. Risk homeostasis is very, very important, because it is one of the tendency. The more safety tool we have in our profession or in our organization, we tend to take more risk. Okay, so if you have aircraft is fitted with advanced avionics, we think that we can even fly low, fly in a bad weather. That is a natural thinking that is coming. Say for example, people tend to drive fast because my car is having all kind of airbag, all kind of advanced avionics, crash worthiness, so I can drive faster. So that risk appetite is increased naturally. So we take a decision bias towards this. Familiarity bias, as the name suggests, we tend to have a overconfident in the routine just because you have done n number of time. A pilot who is flying from place A to place B n number of time, he is familiar with everything. We tend to have that complacency develop over a period of time. So even in the known route, we sometimes tend to forget doing the normal work. Okay, so that's why always and every time remember, routine will dulls our attention. If you follow every day, you follow the same kind of routine, it will dull your attention, because now your brain thinks that I know generally I have been doing this. It will not give that much of energy, because brain is energy conserving mechanism. It will not give same amount of energy for a new task than a older task. So that's when the danger strikes. So that's what we have to have. Whenever routine work, you should have a proper checklist for everything. That's why in aviation we have a checklist for every kind of activity. Okay, last in the action we are going to see that can this bias can be how we can manage the bias. ஸோ த மோஸ்ட் இம்பார்ட்டன்ட் கொஸ்டின் நம்ம எப்படி கேட்கலாம்னா, இந்த பயஸ் எல்லாம் நம்ம எலிமினேட் பண்ண முடியுமா அப்படின்னு நம்ம கேட்கலாம். ஓகேங்களா? பட் அன்ஃபார்ச்சுனேட்லி தீஸ் பயசஸ் கேன் நாட் பி எலிமினேட்டட். ஸோ த ஆன்சர் இஸ் நோ, பிகாஸ் தட் இஸ் ஹவ் அவர் ஹியூமன் பிரெயின் ஹேஸ் பீன் வயர்ட். We have seen in the first section, right? Because of our reptilian and mammalian brain, and because of that hardwired, you just cannot change it. But the good news is it can be managed and reduced. So how we can manage as a pilot, as a leader, as a manager is that you should have self awareness. You should know what are all the bias, what are all the traps. Like by listening to this class or so far we have discussed, these are the bias. So you should develop your own self awareness. What is your own bias? Okay, because out of 16 people, different people will have or affected by a different bias, because everybody's genetics or programming is different. So we should develop our own self awareness. What is my bias? Okay, what is my general mental shortcut pattern? Always follow the checklist. You should have a proper standardization. That is why time and again we are checking that whether we have a checklist, whether we have SOP in place, and you should follow it with letter and spirit. And the third, always cross check and use the CRM. Okay, cross check means because sometimes you may be having the problem but other person might not be, and vice versa. So whenever we have a group thinking, whenever you have a team thinking, the biases can be filtered out. And that is why you always listen to crew. Whenever you share with the other crew, you can identify the various biases. And wherever you get time, have pause and reflect whatever happened, how I am doing. It is more of related to self awareness, and have the team thinking. So whenever we are taking some important decision, we should involve all the important stakeholders, and we should ask the most fundamental question, what are we missing or what I am missing, so that other people, because initially when we formalize, we may be biased. Some programming, because of our programming, we may be biased towards one thing, and we are taking decision accordingly. If you involve more number of people, these biases can be, there itself you can filter it out. And lastly, have the proper debrief. Okay, after a sortie or maybe after a proper meeting, you should have a proper debrief, and you can have the normalized mistake, which means it is not mistakes are not normalizing. We are normalizing learning from the mistakes. So people should come from the mistake. Yes, this is what I have did, and that environment should be so friendly that discussing the mistake should be a normalized thing, so that people come up and they will share. So how it is related to a leadership is that biases definitely affect the leadership decision and judgment. So that's why to prevent, you should have open communication in team. So more openly we have the communication through one channel is there, open door policy is there, people will come up. You can also completely eliminate from this biases. And you should have a value descending voices. That is, whenever other people are giving opposite view or descending view, we should always encourage this, because sometimes we don't want to listen to other people, which is preventing the group thinking. So you should not be doing this. If we follow this, That's how a good crew and good unit will succeed if we follow this. So there are further key takeaways, because last 45 minutes we have been listening to this topic. So if I want to give the meat of the presentation is this. First rule is our brain is evolved for survival and reproduction, not for having a perfect judgment and decision making. You have to accept it. And we everyone have that flaws. Second, these bias and mental shortcuts are natural. That's how our brain has been wired. But this is very, very dangerous in day-to-day situation, especially dangerous in the aviation. And third, you have to recognize, develop your self-awareness. You have to recognize and you have to counter the biases. And last but not the least, good pilot or good manager always have checklist in place, but great leader always use self-awareness. The more high is your self-awareness, less will become your bias, because now you are understand about yourself. But wait, there is one bias which we forget. That is, I am not biased, you are bias. This is a blind spot actually. We always tend to think that I am not having any biased view, this person is having biased view, or that person having biased view. We tend to forget our own blind spot. So that is why it is known as bias blind spot. Now we know that these many biases are there. We started to see these biases more inward than the outward. Okay, how these biases affecting in my own decision making or my judgment. The moment we start increasing the self-awareness, we naturally become a good leader. So lastly, remember, the only bias that we don't study today is the bias against asking question. Okay, so don't fall for it. Ask whatever question you are having in your mind. So if you have got any kind of question, you can put it in the comment. I'll try to answer it.